Spring blooms and blossoms are well underway here across the Pacific Northwest after we've managed to experience a very mild winter season. And as things really start to heat up here across the Pacific Northwest, more of these blooms and blossoms are going to start to take shape. Thanks so much for joining us here for KOIN Conversations. I'm Chief Meteorologist Josh Cozart. Today, my guest is someone who's very familiar to us all here at the KOIN 6 News family. Our previous reporter, Jamie Seymour, will be joining us to really kind of dive into what we can do here in the Pacific Northwest to kind of curb some of our allergy-prone friends and how we can make our lives just a little bit more comfortable when we are at home. But as far as the pollen counts go, we are really keeping those on the high side of things. I want to show you just a bit of a view of exactly what we will be seeing here in the months to come. Of course, everything starts to ramp up in early March when the first few buds start to take shape. But by the time May, June rolls around, we kind of go through this transitional period from having a lot of the tree pollen, and then that transitions into the grass pollen. Hey, Lynn County in particular here across the I-5 corridor is the grass seed capital of the world. So it comes as no surprise that these levels get up to the high, if not even the extreme or even off the chart category as we work our way into the warmer summer months. And as those grasses start to dry out, then finally, the crews come in, the farmers, they take down all of those grasses, and that's when we start to see improvements, typically right around the 4th of July. But as we move from there into the drier months, that's where wildfires can be a growing concern. So our snow water equivalent as of the middle of April 2026 at direly low levels. This is extreme. Some of the lowest snowpack totals we have ever recorded here across the Pacific Northwest. And that plays into allergies and allergens and trying to protect your home and the availability of wildfires to potentially start and spread rapidly in the hot and dry conditions to come. We are starting the month of April and likely ending it with severe drought stretching across much of the central sections of the state of Oregon. So this poses a bit of a threat to sparking a lot of those wildfires and then filling our homes with wildfire smoke. I always like to look back at the year 2020 when much of Western Oregon was choked out in the month of September with wildfire smoke. So many of us were racing to the stores trying to find relief, and air filters and HEPA filters and air purifiers, all the same, to try and give ourselves some relief in addition to keeping our windows and doors shut. But I do want to go ahead and bring in our good friend here, Jamie Seymour with the nonprofit Energy Trust of Oregon. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Josh, thank you for having me, and good to see you again.
Likewise. So we are quickly clipping at the heels of one of my favorite times here in the Pacific Northwest, the summer season, spring already underway. But it comes with this big trade-off. I cannot tell you how many allergy medications I've been on as of late to try to find some source of relief. But there's little simple tips that we can do at home. What would you maybe suggest people start off with thinking about?
Well, I'm right there with you, Josh. I've got the whole bathroom counter filled with medicine right now. But there's a lot that you can do to help alleviate some of these symptoms, as well as saving energy in the process. A lot of what we recommend during wildfire season, like you mentioned, with that smoke in the air, also works during allergy seasons. So a big part of that is the air filters in your home, your heating and cooling system. So a standard heating and cooling system filter, that usually lasts a few months. We usually recommend checking it during the change of season. But during these high counts of pollen or smoke in the air, you want to check those more frequently, about maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, because during these seasons where you have all that pollen and smoke, they can get dirtier faster. And so that means your system has to work a lot harder to get that same amount of cool or warm air pushed through. So during those high allergy months, check them every couple of weeks. And you might hear some of these different acronyms like HEPA and MERV and wonder, what does that even mean? So MERV filters, those kind of have a range to them. So a higher MERV filter, that captures more of some of those irritants, that pollen, that dust, dander, and it just stands for minimum efficiency reporting value. So those are kind of rated based on how efficient they can trap some of those airborne particles, like dust and pollen. So that can range from basic filtration to that top of the line specialized filtration that you might even see like in hospitals or some sort of laboratory setting. They kind of range. So while they capture more irritants, you just want to make sure that you check your manufacturer's guidelines for what you should have at home, and make sure that you're not overworking your system's motor and wasting energy. And while you're using, these handy dandy heating and cooling systems around your home, uh, you might also just want to check in on your settings. So you have this clean, filtered air now inside. You're able to breathe a little easier, has some of that pollen and dander out. Switch your thermostat to fan only in that setting. So that can help improve some of the air distribution in your home while using less energy than, say, a full system cycle. And then as we get into starting, I know we want those warm summer months right now, but as we get back to those, then make sure that you switch your system back to auto when that summer heat starts to creep in.
Yeah, because we definitely want to make sure that we're still feeling comfortable while trying to keep our air clean. And it's hard to believe that all of us are going to blink our eyes and it's just going to jump from season to season here. But I think one of the key takeaways, too, that you mentioned is making sure that your filtration system is well cleaned, because I feel like I have an air purifier that has a little clean filter. And I think, I don't know if it necessarily needs that. And then I open it up and it's only been 2 months and I'm shocked at how much buildup has actually happened on it. And it's funny because once I vacuum it, clean it out, switch out the filters, given however long the expectation for my device is, I see that it is able to draw in a lot more of that air, clean it, and also send it back out into my room much more efficiently, because we want to be able to save power when we are also adding maybe this extra source to try to protect ourselves. Why is it such a important thing for people to try to save power in this regard?
A lot of these things that you do to save on, say, getting clean air inside your home, as a result, naturally saves energy. You mentioned air purifiers. Those are super handy to help clean your air and clear some of that pollen and dust and dander out. And they do have high efficiency air purifiers out there that run on less energy. They work a little easier, and they have them for different sizes so that, say, you're not using a high powered air purifier for a really small room if that's all you need, or if you need a bigger one for a larger space. So they make different ones based on your needs. But one of the other ways that you can really just save energy while breathing a little easier at home is just making sure all of that clean, filtered air actually stays inside. That means sealing up all those gaps and cracks around your house. That's around your windows, your doors, your air vents. Because if air can escape or get in, that also means all of that pollen, that dust, that dander can get inside your home as well. And if it can get in, it can also exit. And that means all that cool air that you just got inside your home, now your system has to work even harder to cool the air inside again. That's using more energy. So, sealing up those gaps and cracks, whether it be from using caulking or weather stripping or door sweeps, that not only keeps all of that pollen out, but it also keeps your filtered air inside so your system doesn't have to work harder and use more energy.
And in turn, not only does it benefit the environment by reducing kind of that energy pull, but it's also going to be dropping a lot of our electric bills as well with that added unit maybe that we have running 24/7, like myself, in every single room to make myself breathe easier during these months. But I also want to kind of point out that some people might think, oh, I can fight through March to July with the allergies. yes, I'm suffering, but after that point, I still feel like maybe I'm having issues. We got to think about even during the winter months that the pollen counts can still vary if you have household pets, the dander, and then on top of that, mold spores, because we get a lot of moisture here in the Pacific Northwest, that these type of units can help purify not only during pollen season, wildfire season, but also during the mold and pet season that we might have 365 days a year.
Yeah, they work year round. It's not just a specific season. And if you happen to have allergies, yeah, they may be a little worse during the springtime, but you also likely notice that you are still taking your medicine throughout the year, that you're still experiencing that throughout the year, even as it kind of ebbs and flows. So items like air purifiers or checking your filters or changing the cycles in your heating and cooling system, those work especially well during this allergy season or during wildfire season, but they also work throughout the year to save you energy, which then saves money on your utility bills and just helps you keeping you breathing easier year round.
And I do got to just kind of point out for our viewers too that the allergy season has almost felt like it's intensified. I felt it. Jamie, you have mentioned that you have been feeling it. And a lot of that is all because of that mild winter that we have experienced. It didn't allow for a lot of things to completely die out. So now they're jumping into the spring action and making things more intense for those of us who suffer from allergies. I know in our newsroom alone, or if I run into folks, they're mentioning just how bad it's been this year. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're in April. Come May, June, expecting to see it skyrocket back up, likely off the charts. Now, the good news is once we get kind of those rain showers into the mix, like we typically see in April and even into May, it helps to bring a lot of those particulates back down to the ground, locks them into place. But then as soon as we dry things out, the sunshine comes back that so many of us are longing for this time of year. It sends all of that pollen right back out into the atmosphere. And I know I'm a person as well who likes to open up those windows, let the fresh air in. And I feel like you can do that in moderation. But then when things get really tough, sealing those doors and windows is going to really help, especially if that unit is working so hard to try and purify the air that's in your home. Maybe take breaks with having the windows open as well.
Yeah, you are not alone in that. We do the same thing at our home, even just those warmer temperatures that we were getting around Easter weekend. Uh, we were itching at the chance to open the windows, have those screens open, get some cool air in overnight. But that was a case where, as we did that, we put the air purifier on as well, just to help filter some of the extra that might come in. And then first thing in the morning, we closed up the windows and just kind of reduce that risk of anything more coming in. And it is so tempting. It's been luckily not a long winter, but it's one where, you want to open up the windows and feel the springtime. And on those warm days, it feels great. But also just making sure that, yeah, you're not leaving your window open then all day long and for days on end, because that again leads to energy loss as that air inside your home escapes, but also lets some of those allergens come in.
And if people want to look up more info or tips or ways that maybe they can find the best air purifier for maybe even their home office or their office space at work in another location, where is the best place that people can find this information?
So people can head to our website, energytrust.org. It doesn't have to cost money to save energy and save on your allergens. But if you are interested in, say, getting an air purifier, Energy Trust offers an instant $75 discount on some Energy Star high efficiency air purifiers. You can get those online, or you can also see, what local retailer might be carrying those. So we'll include those on the KOIN website, as well as having that available on energytrust.org.
That is super easy, kind of the one-stop shop to let people know exactly what they need, what they're looking for to meet their needs. And you all at the nonprofit Energy Trust of Oregon, you don't just focus on air purifiers. Talk to me about what you guys do in a broader form.
Yeah, Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit that really helps people and businesses save energy and thus save money. And that can be through some of these low to no cost tips, like we discussed, or by providing cash incentives or help to get some more energy efficient upgrades, whether that be through heat pumps or heat pump water heaters, your heating and cooling systems at home. There's a lot of help available based on your needs, even if you're interested in, say, getting solar. We serve more than 2.4 million customers across Oregon and Southwest Washington. So if you fall into some of our service areas, check us out. And even if you don't, these low and no cost tips are so extremely helpful during seasons, whether it be springtime and allergy season or during the summer and wildfire. When we to get into those really, really warm summer days when you need to cool off and save energy, we have tips available for everyone that folks can use at little to no cost.
And we all need a little help and a little reminder and some way to make our lives easier. And I feel like you all at Energy Trust of Oregon help guide us in that right direction and familiarize ourselves of how we can make our lives more comfortable, but save money, save energy, and protect the environment, which is such the biggest heartbeat I feel for all of us here in the Pacific Northwest is we want to protect the beauty that's in our own backyard. And we have a lot to overcome here with the pollen, with the lack of sunshine in the winter, the abundance in the summer, and then wildfires. You guys all help to kind of lead us in that direction.
Thanks, Josh. And that's a big part of why we love what we do is, you not only get to help folks save energy and save money, but that also has a lasting impact on the environment. As you save, that helps the land around you as well and the community that we call home, just this beautiful state. So it's important, that, as you do this, as you think more about how you're saving energy, your usage, that it does have a resulting impact on the world around you.
It definitely does. Thank you so much, Jamie, for all of these amazing tips. I hope your allergy season goes much smoother.
I hope yours does too.
Thank you, and everyone at homes as well. But again, you can find Jamie Seymour and all of the tips and tricks over at Energy Trust of Oregon, which we will also have provided on KOIN.com. Jamie Seymour, thank you again.
Thanks, Josh.
Welcome back to KOIN Conversations. I'm Chief Meteorologist Josh Cozart. What a fantastic conversation we had with the Energy Trust of Oregon's Jamie Seymour. Of course, a good friend of us here at KOIN 6 News, previous news reporter for KOIN 6. And, I just have to take a moment to talk about where the pollen counts are heading from here as we kind of prepare ourselves for the higher energy costs that are inevitable with warming temperatures here across the Pacific Northwest. It's already been a very mild winter. We've also been discussing about the chance of a super El Nino moving its way back into the Pacific Ocean. And what that basically means is we've got a better opportunity for warmer and drier conditions to once again return here across the Pacific Northwest. So let's start off with those pollen counts. They're going to be rising here over the coming weeks, if not already experiencing much of the high pollen count as we go from the trees to the grasses to the weeds as we move our way deeper into the summer season. But it's usually right around the 4th of July that a lot of the farmers start to take care of the fields across the I-5 corridor, the Willamette Valley, the grass seed capital of the world, putting an end to the grass pollen. That's my number one indicator that the season is done is usually the 4th of July when I can maybe put the allergy medication aside for just a little bit until the ragweed starts to pick up and other weeds into the late summer season. Now, hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed that this winter or the summer season does not impact us after a very mild winter season. You can see just back in the middle of April, a lot of our snowpack numbers are extremely low. Single digits with the percentage. That's how much water is locked into place. And why snow water equivalent or our snowpack is so important here in the Pacific Northwest is the snow itself acts a bit like a reservoir. It's able to lock in a lot of that moisture, and as temperatures warm, the lack of new moisture, so rain, snow for the mountains, starts to add up. That's where we really like to slowly release the water back out into our landscape. Now, as far as April goes so far, we don't have a lot of moisture to put back into our landscape. So as our temperatures warm, as they dry, the potential for wildfires really starts to creep up and increase across Western Oregon and Southwest Washington. We've already seen a few brush fires out towards Central Oregon back in March. Unheard of typically. Unfortunately, that's our new reality as we prepare for these low snowpack percentages to quickly melt away. Yes, we've seen a few late season blasts of snow, but we really need to be keeping up with that potential of moisture in the form of rain to move its way through our area. And in turn, that's going to help to reduce the pollen count because it grabs all of those particulates in the atmosphere and it brings them back down to the surface. But by the afternoon time frame, if we dry out, the heat rises. It helps rise a lot of those pollen numbers. And that's where we could potentially see a lot of that kind of creeping its way back into our homes as we work our way into the hot, dry summer months. And again, these numbers we're going to be watching extremely closely because they are already at historically low levels, leaving behind drought, which in the past has happened, but never a sight like this, where we see ourselves with severe drought stretching from about Douglas County out towards the northeast corner of our state, Pendleton on the fringe of that severe drought. And we are at the very end of our rainy season when we should be seeing drought stripped away from much of our area. The Portland-Vancouver location, much of the Willamette Valley, either in moderate or abnormally dry conditions. So this is going to be something that we watch extremely close as we move our way into the drier, hotter summer months, because then we trade out that pollen for the air particulates of smoke. Now, if rain moves through our area and keeps the wildfire threat relatively low through the hot and dry summer months, that is the best case scenario. Doesn't always play out that way. And just the same with those particulates from wildfires within their smoke, if we get rain showers, it brings that down. But air purifiers work in the same way, where they're able to capture all of those particulates, lock them into their filters, which we all need to be checking and remembering to replace, as Jamie Seymour had mentioned with the Energy Trust of Oregon. Doing all of those things in practice to ensure that the air that we breathe inside our homes, inside our work, if you have a purifier there, keeps you safe, because it's those particulates with the wildfire smoke. We look back to 2020 where it can leave those particulates in our lungs for an extended amount of time, if not even a lifetime in some cases. So we need to be thinking ahead as wildfire season is knocking at our door. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't play out is what a lot of our forecasts lead us to potentially believe is going to be happening. But nonetheless, it is something we need to keep a close eye on as the pollen counts still skyrocket, with the blooms and blossoms of spring well underway here across the Pacific Northwest. That concludes our KOIN Conversation. Thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your day.